The coffee in Admiral Jake Morrison's cup was still warm when the alarm started screaming. He set the mug down carefully on his desk aboard the orbital defense station and looked at the flashing red lights on his control panel. 23. Years in the Navy had taught him that panic never solved anything. "Admiral, we have a massive contact emerging from hyperspace," Lieutenant Commander Sarah Davis called from her station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the fear underneath. "It's bigger than anything in our databases." Jake walked to the main viewing screen and felt his stomach drop. The alien ship hung in space like a metal mountain, its dark hull stretching for miles in every direction. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at. The vessel made their largest battleships look like toys. "Size estimate?" Jake asked. "Approximately 15 miles long, sir." "Mass readings are off the charts." Before Jake could respond, every communication system on the station activated at once. A voice filled the air, speaking perfect English with no trace of an accent. The words were cold and emotionless, like a computer reading a grocery list. "Attention, primitive inhabitants of the third planet. You will cease all military activities and prepare to receive Imperial representatives. Resistance will result in immediate pacification. You have been warned." The message repeated 3 times, then silence returned to the bridge. Jake stared at the alien ship and felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew, and the answer was terrifying. "Get me President Rodriguez on the secure line," Jake ordered, "and contact Captain Hayes. Tell her to prep her diplomatic team." Captain Lisa Hayes had been a negotiator before joining the space program. She had talked down terrorists, mediated corporate disputes, and even helped end a small war in South America. But nothing had prepared her for this moment as she stood in the shuttle bay, looking at the alien craft that had docked with their station. The ship was sleek and organic-looking, like it had been grown rather than built. Strange symbols covered, its hull glowing with soft blue light. Lisa checked her translator device one more time and stepped forward as the airlock opened. The creature that emerged was 7 feet tall and covered in dark green scales. Its eyes were yellow and moved independently like a chameleon's. When it spoke, rows of sharp teeth became visible. "I am Ambassador Kethvar of the Zenthari Galactic Empire. You will escort me to your leadership immediately." Lisa forced herself to smile. "Welcome to our station, Ambassador. I'm Captain Lisa Hayes, representing Earth's government. We're honored by your visit." Kethvar's head tilted in what might have been amusement. "Honor is irrelevant. Your species has developed faster than light communication and achieved orbital construction. This triggers Imperial law requiring immediate integration into our system." "Integration?" Lisa asked, though she suspected she wouldn't like the answer. "Your military forces will be dissolved. Your government will be replaced by Imperial administrators. Your technology will be limited to approved levels. Your people will be classified as a protected species under Imperial care." The words hit Lisa like physical blows. "And if we refuse?" "Refusal is not possible. The Empire has brought order to 3,000 worlds. Your small planet will not be the exception." Lisa kept her diplomatic smile, but inside she was furious. "I see. And what do we gain from this arrangement?" "Peace, security, protection from the chaos that consumes unguided civilizations. Your species will be preserved in a state suitable to your development level." "Like animals in a zoo," Lisa said quietly. "An apt comparison," Kethvar agreed without emotion. You have 30 of your days to comply. Imperial patience is not unlimited. President Matt Rodriguez sat in the emergency meeting room deep beneath the White House. The faces around the table represented every major nation on Earth. General Katie Burns, the tough-as-nails commander of the Earth Defense Corps, had just finished briefing them on humanity's military capabilities compared to what they faced. "The numbers aren't good," she said bluntly. "Our best estimates suggest their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their single ship could probably take out our entire orbital defense network." Dr. Alex Turner, Earth's leading expert on theoretical alien biology, leaned forward. "Based on the ambassador's physiology and behavior patterns, I believe we're dealing with a species that thinks in terms of absolute hierarchy. They see us as children who need to be controlled for our own good." "Children don't fight back," General Burns said grimly. "Maybe that's their mistake." President Rodriguez looked around the table. "Options? We could comply," suggested Secretary of State Janet Mills. "Live to fight another day." "Fight with what?" demanded General Burns. "If we give up our military, we give up any chance of future resistance. They'll keep us as pets forever." "We could try to negotiate better terms," offered Dr. Turner. Captain Hayes, who had just returned from the alien ship, shook her head. "I spent 6 hours with their ambassador. He doesn't negotiate. He dictates. To him, we're talking animals that need to be put in our proper place." President Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. Outside, he could hear the sounds of Washington traffic. People going about their normal lives while their world balanced on the edge of slavery. Finally, he spoke. 30 days, he said. "They're giving us 30 days to surrender everything. That makes us human. Our freedom, our right to choose our own path, our future." He stood up slowly. "I don't know about the rest of you, but I didn't take an oath to preserve humanity just so we could hand it over to alien overlords." General Burns smiled grimly. "What are you saying, sir?" "I'm saying we tell them no. We tell them that Earth doesn't kneel to anyone, not even a galactic empire. And then we get ready for the fight of our lives." Dr. Turner looked worried. "Sir, with respect, this could mean the end of human civilization." "Maybe," President Rodriguez agreed. "But I'd rather die free than live as someone's pet. The question is, what can we accomplish in 30 days? General Burns was already making notes. "We mobilize everything, every factory, every scientist, every person who can hold a weapon. We've got one advantage they don't expect." "Which is?" "Humans are really, really good at fighting when we're angry, and mister, we are about to get very angry." The meeting continued through the night, but the decision was already made. Earth would not surrender. They would fight, even if it seemed impossible. Because sometimes the most human thing you can do is refuse to accept that something can't be done. In space, the alien ship waited patiently, confident in its superiority. But inside Earth's orbital stations and on the planet below, something was stirring. Something the Zenthari had never encountered before in their conquest of 3,000 worlds. They were about to meet humanity at its most dangerous. The president's speech went out to every television, radio, and internet connection on Earth. Matt Rodriguez stood behind the podium in the Oval Office, looking directly into the camera with steady eyes. "My fellow humans," he began, 3 days ago, we learned we are not alone in the universe. We also learned that we face a choice. Submit to alien rule and lose our freedom forever, or stand up and fight for the right to control our own destiny? He paused, letting the words sink in. The choice is simple. Earth will never bow to alien tyranny. We will never surrender our freedom. If they want our world, they'll have to take it from us. Around the globe, people stopped what they were doing to listen. In factories, workers gathered around radio speakers. In offices, employees crowded around computer screens. In homes, families sat together on couches, holding each other tight. Starting today, we are at war, the president continued. Not a war we wanted, but a war we will win. Because we are human beings, and human beings don't give up. When the speech ended, something extraordinary happened. Factory workers didn't go home. Instead, they stayed at their machines, ready to build whatever was needed. Maria Santos, who had been making car parts just that morning, was already learning how to manufacture components for military equipment. Truck driver Pete Johnson called his dispatcher and volunteered his rig for military transport. Within hours, convoys of civilian trucks were carrying supplies to military bases across the country. The highways filled with ordinary people moving toward an uncertain future with grim determination. In a converted warehouse outside Detroit, Colonel Ben Parker watched as the impossible became routine. Automotive assembly lines that had been making family sedans were now producing armored vehicles. Engineers who designed air conditioning systems were figuring out how to build better armor plating. How long until the first units roll off the line? He asked the plant manager. 72 hours, came the reply. We're working around the clock. Parker nodded. It wasn't fast enough, but it was faster than anyone had thought possible. All across the country, the same scene was playing out. America's industrial might was turning toward war with frightening speed. In Silicon Valley, tech entrepreneur Rachel Kim had locked herself in her lab with a team of the best engineers money could buy. They were studying pieces of alien technology that had been recovered from the ambassador's shuttle during what the official reports called a routine inspection. The energy patterns are completely different from anything we use, she explained to the video conference of world leaders. Their systems operate on quantum frequencies we're just beginning to understand, but I think we can figure out how to disrupt them. Dr. Amy Foster, a physicist who had been working on experimental energy weapons, studied the data with growing excitement. If we can match these frequencies with our plasma weapons, we might be able to overload their defensive systems. Might? Asked General Burns from her command center. Science doesn't deal in certainties, General, but I'd bet my career on it. You're betting all our lives on it, Burns replied grimly. Make it work. Meanwhile, engineer Carlos Rodriguez was having his own breakthrough. The alien ship's armor was incredibly strong, but it had a crystalline structure that might be vulnerable to specific types of kinetic impact. He'd been working on railgun designs for the space program, but now those designs were being scaled up for military use. The key is hitting them with enough force at the right angle, he explained to his team. We need to concentrate massive amounts of energy into a very small area. His workshop had become a 24-hour operation. Machinists who normally made precision parts for satellites were now crafting components for weapons that could punch holes through starship armor. The Zenthari response was swift and contemptuous. 3 sleek probe ships detached from the main vessel and swept down toward Earth's atmosphere. They moved with casual arrogance, clearly expecting no real resistance. The probes targeted military installations with surgical precision. A Marine base in California vanished in a flash of blue energy. An Air Force squadron scrambling to intercept them was destroyed before they could fire a shot. A naval installation in Norfolk disappeared in a cloud of superheated steam. But then something unexpected happened. As the probes completed their demonstration and prepared to return to orbit, one of them suffered a catastrophic system failure and crashed into the Nevada desert. The pilot responsible was Tony Blake, a former test pilot who had been flying an experimental interceptor when the attack began. His aircraft was heavily damaged and his left arm was broken, but he had managed to ram the alien probe at just the right angle to send it spinning out of control. "I couldn't shoot it down," he told the rescue team that pulled him from the wreckage, "so I figured I'd just run into it and see what happened." What happened was that humanity got its first intact piece of alien technology to study. Within hours, the crashed probe was surrounded by every scientist and engineer the government could find. Dr. Amy Foster was the first to access the probe's computer systems. What she found there changed everything. "They're not just arrogant," she reported to President Rodriguez. "They're predictable. Their tactics follow rigid patterns because they've never faced serious resistance. Every species they've conquered has either surrendered immediately or been crushed so quickly that they never learned to adapt." "What does that mean for us?" the president asked. "It means they don't know how to fight an enemy that refuses to give up. They don't understand guerrilla warfare. They don't understand innovation under pressure. They certainly don't understand what humans do when we get really mad." General Burns smiled grimly as she studied the intelligence reports. "They've been conquering civilizations for thousands of years, but they've never fought humans before. They have no idea what they're dealing with." The probe crash had done more than give humanity access to alien technology. It had shown that the aliens could be hurt, that they could make mistakes, that they weren't invincible after all. Around the world, the news spread like wildfire. In factories and laboratories, on military bases, and in civilian homes, people felt something they hadn't experienced since the aliens arrived. Hope. The Xanthari had demonstrated their superior firepower, but they had also revealed their weakness. They expected quick submission from primitive species. They had never faced a civilization that would rather die fighting than live in chains. Tony Blake, recovering in a military hospital, became the first human hero of the war. But he wouldn't be the last. All across Earth, ordinary people were preparing to do extraordinary things. The aliens had sent probes to break humanity's spirit. Instead, they had only made humans more determined to fight. The Xanthari were about to learn a hard lesson about the species they thought they could easily control. Humans, it turned out, had a talent for turning the impossible into the inevitable, and they were just getting started. Captain Sam Mitchell checked his instruments one more time as his fighter approached the massive alien ship. Around him, 47 other pilots prepared for what everyone knew was probably a suicide mission. Their ships had been hastily modified, with the new plasma weapons Dr. Foster's team had developed, but nobody knew if they would actually work. "All squadrons, this is Control," came General Burns's voice over the radio. "Operation Defiance is a go. Remember, we're not trying to destroy their ship. We just need to hurt them badly enough to show the galaxy that humans fight back." Sam looked at the alien vessel growing larger on his screen. It was beautiful in a cold, deadly way, like a work of art designed to kill. "Dragon Squadron, form up on me. Let's go show these lizards what humans can do." Commander Jenny Walsh coordinated the ground-based attack from her position in the Colorado Mountains. The railgun batteries her team had built were untested, massive weapons that drew power from entire cities. If they worked, they might punch through the alien ship's shields. If they didn't, a lot of good people were about to die for nothing. Power levels are good, reported her chief engineer. Targeting solutions locked. All batteries prepare to fire on my mark, Jenny commanded. She watched the tactical display as the human fighters closed in on their target. The aliens hadn't even bothered to launch defensive craft yet. They were that confident in their superiority. Mark! The railguns fired in perfect synchronization, sending projectiles toward the alien ship at tremendous speed. At the same moment, Sam's squadron opened fire with their plasma cannons. The alien ship's response was immediate and devastating. Point defense turrets emerged from its hull like angry wasps, filling space with deadly energy beams. Sam watched in horror as fighter after fighter disappeared in flashes of light. "They're cutting us apart," shouted Lieutenant Ryan Cooper over the radio. "These shields are too strong." But Ryan had noticed something the others missed. When multiple plasma beams hit the same spot on the alien shields, there was a brief flicker. "All fighters concentrate fire on grid reference 77 Alpha. Hit the same spot." Sam saw it too. "You heard him. Pour everything into that one point." The remaining fighters converged their fire while the alien defenses continued to destroy them. 12 fighters became 8, then 5, then 3. But their concentrated assault was having an effect. The shield flickered again. Longer this time, Ryan Cooper made a decision that would be remembered for generations. "I'm going to ram that. Weak spot. When my ship explodes, the shield should collapse for a few seconds. Hit them with everything you've got." "Ryan, no," Sam shouted. But it was too late. Cooper's fighter dove straight into the shield node, his plasma cannons firing continuously. The explosion was brilliant, and for exactly 4 seconds, a section of the alien ship's shields went down. Sam and the 2 surviving fighters didn't waste the opportunity. They poured all their remaining firepower into the unprotected hull, carving deep gouges into the alien metal before the shields came back up. "Fighters, get out of there," Jenny ordered from the ground. "Marines, you're clear to go in." Colonel Nick Peters had been waiting for this moment. His Marine boarding teams were packed into captured alien transport pods preparing for the most dangerous mission in military history. They were going inside an enemy starship with weapons and tactics designed for fighting humans, not aliens. "Remember, their corridors are built for 7-foot lizards," he told his teams over the comm. "Use that against them. Stay low, stay fast, and keep moving." The transport pods punched through the holes Sam's fighters had made in the alien hull. Nick's pod was the first to reach the interior, and he kicked open the door to find himself face to face with the Zenthari warrior. The alien was exactly as tall as expected, covered in tough scales and carrying an energy weapon that could probably cut a human in half. But Nick had spent 30 years learning how to kill things that wanted to kill him, and he was very good at his job. He rolled under the alien's first shot and put 3 bullets into its chest before it could fire again. The Zenthari staggered, but didn't fall. Their armor was better than expected. "Aim for the joints!" Nick yelled as more Marines poured into the corridor. "The armor's weaker where it bends." The fighting was brutal and close. The Zenthari were stronger and tougher than humans, but they fought like they expected their enemies to be intimidated by their size and weapons. They had never faced Marines who treated 7-foot armored lizards as just another obstacle to overcome. Dr. Kate Morgan was part of the boarding team, but her mission was different. While the Marines fought their way through the ship, she needed to reach the computer systems and steal whatever information she could find. She followed Nick's team through corridors filled with smoke and the sound of gunfire. The alien ship's interior was dimly lit and uncomfortably warm, with organic-looking walls that seemed to pulse with their own life. "Computer core should be this way," she told Nick as they reached a major intersection. Rodriguez, Williams, escort. The dock, Nick ordered. Everyone else, we need to hold this position. Kate and her escorts fought their way deeper into the ship. The alien seemed to realize what she was trying to do because the resistance got heavier the closer they got to the computer core. When they finally reached it, Kate was amazed by what she found. The Zenthari computer systems were incredibly advanced, but they were also completely undefended against human hacking techniques. The aliens had never imagined that a primitive species might try to steal their data. It's like they left the door wide open, she muttered, as her programs began downloading everything they could find. Ship schematics, tactical information, communication, protocols, and most importantly, intelligence about incoming Zenthari reinforcements. Doc, we need to go, called Sergeant Rodriguez. They're massing for a counterattack. Kate grabbed her equipment and ran. The data she'd stolen would change everything, but only if she could get it back to Earth. The Marine teams fought their way back to their transport pods, carrying wounded comrades and the most valuable intelligence in human history. Behind them, the alien ship began to recover from the shock of being boarded by primitive creatures who refused to be intimidated. Sam Mitchell and the surviving fighter pilots watched from a safe distance as the Marine pods launched from the alien ship. They had lost most of their squadron, but they had accomplished the impossible. They had hurt the Zenthari. All units, return to base, came General Burns's voice. You've done your job. As the human forces withdrew, the alien ship remained in orbit, damaged but far from defeated. However, the balance of power had shifted in a subtle but important way. The Zenthari were no longer dealing with primitives who cowered before superior technology. They were facing an enemy that fought back, even when victory seemed impossible. On Earth, Dr. Kate Morgan's stolen data revealed a terrifying truth. The single ship they had just attacked was only the advanced scout. A full Zenthari battle fleet was already on its way to Earth, carrying enough firepower to turn the planet into molten rock. But the data also revealed something else. The Zenthari had never lost a ship to a primitive species. They had never been boarded by enemy forces. They had never faced an enemy that adapted and innovated in the middle of a battle. For the first time in their imperial history, the Zenthari were confused. And confused enemies, as any human soldier could tell you, were enemies that could be beaten. Linda Shaw had spent 15 years in special forces before retiring to run a small auto repair shop in Montana. She thought her warfighting days were over. She was wrong. The call came from General Burns herself. We need someone who knows how to teach ordinary people to fight an enemy with superior technology. Interested? 3 days later, Linda was standing in a high school gymnasium in Denver, looking at 200 volunteers who had never held a weapon in their lives. Teachers, accountants, store clerks, and retired grandmothers, all united by the simple fact that they refused to surrender their planet to alien invaders. Forget everything you've seen in movies, she told them. We're not trying to be heroes. We're trying to be effective. The aliens are bigger, stronger, and better armed than us. So we're going to cheat. She held up a device that looked like a modified garage door opener. This is a shield disruptor. Joe Harris built it in his auto shop using parts from the alien probe. It won't work for long, but it doesn't need to. You get close to an alien, you push this button, and for about 3 seconds their personal shields go down. That's when you hit them with this. The second device was a simple pipe bomb with a timer. Beth Clark designed the triggering mechanism. It's made from fertilizer, diesel fuel, and spare computer parts. The aliens have never seen anything like it because their technology is too advanced to recognize primitive explosives as a threat. Linda watched their faces carefully. Most of them looked scared, which was good. Scared people were careful people, and careful people stayed alive longer. Remember, we're not trying to win fair fights. We're trying to make the aliens afraid, to leave their ships. Every time they send a patrol, some of them don't come back. Every time they try to set up an outpost, it explodes. We make their lives miserable until they decide Earth isn't worth the trouble. Joe Harris had never thought his skills as an auto mechanic would become crucial to humanity's survival. But when Dr. Foster's team needed someone who understood how to make machines work with whatever parts were available, they called him. The problem with alien technology, he explained to his team, is that it's too smart. Their missiles think too much. They analyze targets and trajectories and try to find the most efficient attack pattern. He gestured to the device on his workbench. It looked like a piece of space junk held together with duct tape and prayer. This doesn't think at all. It just flies where we point it and explodes when it hits something. Their defensive systems don't even recognize it as a weapon. Beth Clark, the software engineer who had become Joe's unlikely partner, nodded agreement. I've programmed it to mimic the electromagnetic signature of space debris. As far as their sensors are concerned, it's just a chunk of metal floating through space. The ghost missiles, as they came to be called, were crude by alien standards. They flew slowly, had terrible accuracy, and carried warheads that couldn't punch through serious armor. But they worked because the aliens never saw them coming. The first successful test came when a Zenthari patrol tried to establish a monitoring station on the moon. Joe and Beth watched from Earth as their missiles approached the alien installation, completely ignored by its defensive systems. Impact in 5 seconds, Beth reported. 4, 3, 2, 1. The explosion was visible from Earth as a brief flash of light on the lunar surface. When the light faded, the alien station was gone. It worked, Joe said in amazement. The thing actually worked. Within weeks, ghost missiles were being manufactured in garages and basements across the planet. The aliens responded by increasing their sensor sensitivity, but that only made things worse for them. Now their defensive systems were shooting at actual space debris, wasting energy and revealing their positions. Danny Wright had been demolishing buildings for 20 years before the war started. He understood explosives the way other people understood breathing. When the aliens tried to establish orbital bombardment platforms, Danny's expertise became invaluable. The trick, he explained to his sabotage team, is getting close enough to plant the charges without being detected. These platforms have sensors that can spot a mouse from orbit, but they're looking for traditional threats. Danny's solution was elegantly simple. Instead of trying to sneak past the sensors, he hid his explosives inside supplies the aliens themselves were bringing to the platform. A routine delivery of construction materials became a Trojan horse filled with precisely placed charges. Timing is everything, he told his team as they watched the alien platform through telescopes. We want them to think everything is normal right up until the moment their station turns into fireworks. The explosion was spectacular. The orbital platform, which had taken the aliens weeks to construct, disintegrated in seconds. Debris rained down on the alien ship below, causing additional damage and forcing them to retreat to a safer distance. But Danny's greatest success came when the aliens adapted their security procedures. They began scanning all incoming supplies and screening all personnel. So Danny changed tactics. Instead of hiding explosives in supplies, he used the aliens' own maintenance robots against them. Beth Clark helped him hack into their automated systems, programming the robots to gradually weaken critical support structures over a period of weeks. They're using their own robots to demolish their own platforms, Danny explained to Linda Shaw. And they have no idea it's happening until it's too late. Captain Kelly Brooks had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in human history, taking the fight directly to the enemy using their own technology. Her team had spent months studying the captured alien stealth systems, learning how to operate them without triggering built-in security measures. The aliens never imagined that primitive species would try to steal their ships, she reported to General Burns. Their security is designed to prevent other Xanthari from betraying the Empire, not to stop humans from hijacking their technology. Kelly's target was a Xanthari supply depot in the asteroid belt. Intelligence suggested it contained advanced materials and weapons that Earth desperately needed. More importantly, destroying it would force the aliens to divert resources from their planned assault on Earth. Her ship was a hybrid of human and alien technology, invisible to Xanthari sensors, but bristling with weapons designed by human engineers. It looked like nothing that had ever flown before, and that was exactly the point. Approaching target now, she reported as the supply depot appeared on her screens. It was a massive structure carved into an asteroid, protected by automated defense systems and housing enough supplies to equip an entire fleet. The attack was swift and brutal. Kelly's ship slipped past the outer defenses using stolen alien codes, then unleashed a barrage of ghost missiles and plasma weapons at point-blank range. The depot's defensive systems, programmed to recognize alien threats, couldn't process what was happening fast enough to respond effectively. Target destroyed, Kelly reported as she watched the depot collapse into the asteroid's surface. Heading home with captured materials. The raid was more than a military success. It was proof that humans could take the fight to the enemy anywhere in the solar system. The aliens were no longer safe behind their superior technology. As news of the successful raids spread across Earth, something changed in the global mood. The initial terror of facing an overwhelming enemy was being replaced by grim determination. Humans were learning that the aliens, for all their advanced technology, had weaknesses that could be exploited. In workshops and laboratories around the world, ordinary people were creating weapons and tactics the aliens had never encountered. Auto mechanics were building missiles, computer programmers were hacking alien systems, and construction workers were teaching resistance fighters how to bring down alien installations. The Xanthari had expected quick submission from a primitive species. Instead, they were facing an enemy that got more dangerous the longer the fight continued. Every alien patrol that disappeared, every outpost that exploded, every supply depot that was destroyed taught humanity new ways to hurt their would-be conquerors. The war was far from over, but the impossible was becoming routine. Humans were proving that superior technology meant nothing if you didn't understand the enemy you were fighting. And the Xanthari, despite all their experience conquering, civilizations had never fought anyone quite like humans before. The Xanthari fleet limped through the outer solar system like wounded animals, their rigid command structure shattered by the death of Fleet Admiral Zethran. For the first time in their imperial history, individual ship captains were making decisions without clear orders from above, and the results were disastrous. Captain Krelthak of the destroyer Vengeance had always followed orders without question. Now, with his fleet commander dead and his communication systems compromised by human viruses, he found himself making tactical decisions he wasn't trained for. When his sensors detected what appeared to be a small human merchant vessel, he ordered an immediate attack. The merchant vessel was actually Captain Rob Wilson's captured Zenthari destroyer, now operated by a mixed crew of humans and captured alien technology. Wilson watched the approaching enemy ship with grim satisfaction. "They're coming in hot and angry," reported his tactical officer, a former Navy lieutenant who was still learning how to operate alien weapons. "Should we try to talk them out of attacking?" "Why would we do that?" Wilson asked. "Load torpedo tubes with our special presents." The special presents were human-built nuclear warheads fitted with stolen alien guidance systems. When the Zenthari ship opened fire, Wilson's crew responded with weapons that the aliens never saw coming. The enemy destroyer vanished in a flash of nuclear fire. "One down," Wilson reported to Fleet Command. "These guys really don't know how to adapt when their plan stops working." Around the solar system, similar scenes were playing out as human forces exploited the chaos in the alien command structure. The Zenthari had spent thousands of years developing tactics for conquering primitive civilizations, but they had never faced an enemy that fought back with their own technology. Sarah Miller's engineering team had been working around the clock to understand alien communication protocols. What they discovered was almost too good to believe. The Zenthari used a quantum communication network that was incredibly advanced, but completely undefended against the kind of electronic warfare humans had developed. "It's like they built the most sophisticated lock in the universe," Sarah explained to General Burns, "but they never imagined anyone would try to pick it." Sarah's virus was more sophisticated than Beth Clark's original hack. Instead of simply disrupting communications, it actively fed false information into the alien network. Zenthari ships began receiving orders that seemed to come from their own commanders but were actually generated by human computers. "Enemy Destroyer Group Alpha, proceed to coordinate 779 and engage human forces," Sarah typed into her computer. The orders appeared on alien screens with all the proper authorization codes. The Zenthari ships dutifully followed the AEA. False orders, flying straight into an ambush set by Admiral Julie Stone's fleet. The aliens never realized they had been tricked until human missiles started exploding around them. Mike Taylor had never expected to become a war hero. Before the invasion, he was a construction foreman in Phoenix, building shopping malls and office complexes. Now he was leading civilian volunteers in an assault on a Zenthari ground base, using tactics he had learned from action movies and old war documentaries. "Remember, these lizards are used to fighting scared primitives," he told his team as they approached the alien installation. "They're not ready for humans who watch too much television and know every guerrilla warfare trick ever filmed." The Zenthari base was supposed to be impregnable, protected by energy shields and automated defenses. But Mike's team had spent weeks studying its weaknesses, using drones built from hobby store components to map the alien facility. "The shield generators are here, here, and here," Mike pointed to his hand-drawn map. "Sarah's virus should shut them down for exactly 3 minutes when we give the signal. That's our window." The attack began at dawn with a signal from Beth Clark's team. The alien shields flickered and died just as Mike's volunteers emerged from their hiding places. They had spent their own money on hunting rifles and homemade explosives, turning themselves into an army that existed only in the aliens' worst nightmares. The Zenthari defenders were caught completely off guard. Their sensors showed humans approaching from every direction, armed with primitive weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate their defenses. But the shields were down, and the humans were not interested in fighting fair. "Take everything that looks important," Mike ordered, as his team swarmed through the alien base, "and blow up everything else." By the time Zenthari reinforcements arrived, the base was a smoking ruin, and Mike's volunteers had vanished into the desert with arms full of alien technology. The entire operation had taken less than 2 hours. Dr. Chris Anderson had been studying the quantum mechanics of alien technology when he made a discovery that would change the war. The Xanthari communication system didn't just carry messages. It also controlled critical ship functions like life support and navigation. If we can overload their quantum processors, he explained to President Rodriguez, we can shut down entire ships without firing a shot. The Chaos Bomb was elegant in its simplicity. It was a virus that spread through the alien network like wildfire, causing their own computers to turn against them. Ships found their life support systems failing, their weapons refusing to fire, and their navigation computers plotting courses into stars. The first test came when a Xanthari patrol approached Earth's moon. Dr. Anderson activated his virus from a hidden transmitter on Luna Colony, and the results exceeded his wildest expectations. The alien ships simply stopped working. Their engines shut down, their weapons went offline, and their life support systems began recycling toxic gases instead of breathable air. Within minutes, the entire patrol was drifting helplessly through space. "It's beautiful," Anderson whispered, as he watched the aliens' own technology destroy them. They built such an advanced system that they never considered someone might use it against them. The psychological effect on the Xanthari fleet was devastating. Ship captains, who had been confident in their technological superiority, suddenly found themselves afraid to use their own computers. Every order they gave, every system they activated, could be the one that killed them. Some alien ships tried to operate using manual controls, but their crews had been dependent on automated systems for so long that they barely remembered how to function without them. Navigation errors sent ships careening into asteroids. Weapons malfunctioned and destroyed their own vessels. Life support failures left entire crews gasping for air. The mighty Xanthari fleet, which had arrived expecting to crush a primitive world, was tearing itself apart through a combination of human cunning and alien overconfidence. Admiral Julie Stone watched the chaos from her command ship and felt something she hadn't experienced since the war began: genuine optimism. The aliens weren't invincible. They could be confused, tricked, and defeated by an enemy that refused to fight by their rules. "All ships," she ordered, "advance and engage. Let's finish this." The human fleet moved forward to engage the crippled alien vessels. But instead of the desperate last stand everyone had expected, it was turning into something that looked almost like a fair fight. The humans had better tactics, better morale, and technology that was no longer inferior to what their enemies possessed. Captain Kelly Brooks led a squadron of hybrid human-alien fighters against a Xanthari battleship that was struggling with malfunctioning systems. Her ships moved with precision and coordination that the confused aliens couldn't match. "Target their engine cores," she ordered. "Let's give them a lesson in human engineering." The attack was swift and decisive. The alien battleship hobbled. By its own malfunctioning computers, couldn't defend itself against an enemy that had learned to fight with alien weapons and human tactics. As the massive ship broke apart under human fire, Kelly felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with military victory. Humanity had faced extinction and responded by becoming something the aliens had never encountered before, a species that got stronger under pressure. The tide of war was turning, but it wasn't because humans had become like the aliens. It was because they had remained uniquely, stubbornly, dangerously human. They had taken alien technology and made it serve human purposes. They had faced superior force with superior cunning. Most importantly, they had refused to surrender even when surrender seemed logical. That refusal was about to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of humanity's first interstellar warship, watching the stars shift around them as they dropped out of hyperspace. 6 months ago, faster-than-light travel had been impossible for humans. Now they were, leading a fleet of captured and rebuilt alien vessels toward the Zenthari staging area in the Proxima system. "Sensor contact," reported Lieutenant Commander Davis. 37 Zenthari vessels in orbit around Proxima B. Looks like their main forward operating base. Jake studied the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The intelligence gathered by Kevin White's infiltration teams had been accurate. The aliens had concentrated their reserve forces here, expecting to use Proxima as a launching point for future attacks on Earth. "Signal the fleet," Jake ordered. "We're not here to capture territory. We're here to send a message. When we're done, there won't be enough left of this base for the aliens to remember why they thought conquering Earth was a good idea." Colonel Tracy Adams checked her equipment one more time as the assault shuttles approached the alien base. Her Marines had trained for 6 months using captured Zenthari weapons and armor, learning to fight in zero gravity with technology that was more advanced than anything Earth had possessed before the war. "Remember," she told her troops over the comm, "these aliens have been running this base for years. They think they're safe. They think humans can't reach them across interstellar space. Let's show them how wrong they are." The Marines had learned hard lessons from the first boarding actions against Zenthari ships. This time, they weren't just trying to survive close combat with 7-foot armored lizards. They were hunting them with weapons designed specifically to kill Zenthari warriors. Tracy's rifle used gravitational fields to accelerate projectiles to incredible speeds, punching through alien armor like it was made of paper. Her troops carried similar weapons, along with shield disruptors, plasma grenades, and other tools that had been developed by studying captured alien technology. The assault began with Kevin White's infiltration team disabling the base's security systems from the inside. Kevin had spent months learning to mimic Zenthari behavior and speech patterns, using holographic disguise technology to blend in with alien personnel. "Security grid is down," he reported from inside the command center. "Automated defenses are offline. The Marines have a clear path to the primary objectives." Kevin's greatest achievement had been learning to think like the aliens. The Zenthari were creatures of rigid hierarchy and absolute obedience to authority. They simply couldn't imagine that an enemy agent might walk into their most secure facilities wearing the face of a trusted commander. "Phase 2 is complete," Kevin continued. "Their communication relays are broadcasting false status reports. As far as the rest of their fleet knows, everything here is normal." Tracy's Marines hit the base like a hurricane. They moved through corridors designed for Zenthari physiology with tactical precision that the aliens had never encountered. Every door they opened revealed defenders who were completely unprepared for human warfare tactics. "Squad 3, take the reactor complex," Tracy ordered. "Squad 7, secure the command center. Everyone else, we're going hunting." The Zenthari defenders were individually stronger and better armored than humans, but they fought like they expected their enemies to be intimidated by superior technology and physical advantages. They had never faced Marines who treated alien warriors as just another obstacle to overcome. "Contact left," called Sergeant Brown as a Zenthari patrol rounded a corner. The aliens opened fire with energy weapons that should have cut the humans in half. Instead, the Marines' adaptive armor deflected the alien fire, while their gravitational rifles punched through Zenthari shields and armor with devastating effect. The entire alien patrol was down in seconds. "They're not adapting," Tracy observed as her teams swept through the base. "They keep using the same tactics that worked against primitive species. They don't understand that we've learned to fight back. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison's fleet was systematically destroying the Zenthari ships in orbit. The alien vessels were powerful individually, but they were also predictable. Human tactics had evolved far beyond anything the Zenthari could counter. Target their communications array first, Jake ordered. Then their weapons. Leave their engines for last. I want them to live long enough to watch their base burn. The human ships moved with coordination that confused the alien defenders. Instead of fighting like a traditional fleet, they operated more like a pack of predators, using the aliens' own technology against them in ways the original designers had never imagined. Captain Sam Mitchell, now commanding a hybrid human-Zenthari destroyer, led his squadron in a textbook example of human innovation. His ships appeared to be standard Zenthari vessels until they opened fire with weapons that no alien computer could recognize or defend against. Their shields are calibrated for energy weapons, Sam reported as his gravitational cannons tore through alien defenses. They have no idea how to stop kinetic projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The space battle was over in less than an hour. The Zenthari ships, designed to overwhelm primitive civilizations with superior firepower, simply couldn't adapt fast enough to fight an enemy that used their own technology in completely unexpected ways. On the surface of Proxima B, Tracy's Marines completed their objectives with ruthless efficiency. The alien base, which had taken years to construct, was reduced to smoking rubble in a matter of hours. Reactor complex secured and rigged for demolition, reported Squad 3. Command center captured, added Squad 7. We've got their entire database. Tracy smiled grimly as she surveyed the devastation. Outstanding work, Marines. Let's collect our souvenirs and get out of here. The souvenirs included advanced alien weapons, computer cores containing military intelligence, and most importantly, evidence that other species throughout the galaxy were watching Earth's resistance with growing interest. Dr. Amy Foster, now serving as the fleet's chief science officer, analyzed the captured data during the journey back to Earth. What she found was more valuable than any weapon or technology. The Zenthari Empire isn't as stable as they want everyone to believe, she reported to Jake. There are at least a dozen species that have attempted rebellion in the past century. They've all been crushed, but the fact that they tried suggests widespread discontent. More importantly, she continued, our success at Proxima is being reported throughout their communication network. Other species are learning that the Empire can be beaten. The return to Earth was a triumph unlike anything in human history. The fleet that had left 6 months ago as refugees fighting for survival came home as conquerors carrying proof that humanity could project power across interstellar distances. President Rodriguez met them at the orbital station where the war had begun. The man who had once faced an alien ultimatum with nothing but human courage now commanded technology that made Earth a galactic power. What's our next move? He asked Jake during the debriefing. We've proven we can hit them anywhere in the galaxy, Jake replied. Now we need to decide how far we're willing to go. We could fortify our borders and defend what we've got, or we could take this fight to every Zenthari base from here to the galactic core. General Burns leaned forward. What about the other species the Empire has conquered? If they're as restless as Dr. Foster suggests, maybe it's time they had some help with their own liberation movements. Rodriguez nodded slowly. We went from defending our planet to attacking their forward base. The next step is helping other worlds break free from Imperial control. It means a much bigger war, Jake warned. We'd be fighting the entire Empire instead of just their local forces. We were already fighting the entire Empire, Rodriguez replied. The difference is that now we have allies who want to see the Zenthari fall as much as we do. The decision was made with the same determination that had led Earth to resist the original ultimatum. Humanity would not be content with mere survival. They would carry the fight to every corner of the galaxy where beings lived under imperial oppression. The Zentari had demanded Earth's submission and received fire in return. Now that fire would spread to every world that had ever dreamed of freedom. The empire that had conquered 3,000 civilizations was about to discover what happened when humans decided to liberate the galaxy. The counteroffensive had begun, and it would not stop until every species was free to choose its own destiny. The Galactic Council chamber on Kepler Station had not seen such drama in over 1,000 years. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to witness something unprecedented, a formal challenge to Zentari imperial authority by the newly recognized Earth government. Ambassador Lisa Hayes walked through the Great Hall with measured steps, representing not just humanity, but the hope of every oppressed species in the galaxy. Behind her walked President Rodriguez, General Burns, and Admiral Morrison, their presence a clear statement that Earth came to the Council as equals, not supplicants. The Zentari delegation, led by Supreme Commander Vectar, watched with barely concealed fury. In 2 years of warfare, these primitive humans had accomplished what no other species had managed in 3 millennia. They had fought the Empire to a standstill and inspired rebellion across a dozen worlds. The Empire recognizes no authority above imperial law, Vectar declared when called upon to speak. These humans are criminals who have violated galactic order. They should be in chains, not standing in this council chamber. Lisa stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. Supreme Commander, your empire issued an ultimatum to Earth. We responded. You sent warships to enforce your will. We destroyed them. You brought your full fleet to crush our resistance. We sent you running back to the galactic core with half your ships in ruins. Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. Many species had suffered under Zentari rule for generations, but none had ever spoken so boldly to imperial representatives. The facts are simple, Lisa continued. Earth defeated your forces in open combat. We captured your technology, liberated your prisoner worlds, and proved to the galaxy that the Empire is not invincible. We're not here to ask for recognition. We're here to demand it. The vote was closer than anyone had expected, but when the results were announced, Earth's admission to the Galactic Council was confirmed by a narrow margin. For the first time in galactic history, the Zentari Empire faced formal opposition in the council chamber. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the real work of liberation continued. Admiral Sam Mitchell commanded the growing fleet of human and allied vessels that had become known as the Freedom Armada. Their mission was simple: find oppressed worlds and help them break free from imperial control. The Arcanian system had been under Zentari rule for 600 years. The native population had been reduced to slave labor, mining rare minerals for the imperial war machine. They had given up hope of freedom generations ago. This is Admiral Mitchell of the Earth Liberation Fleet, Sam broadcast to the planet below. We're here to help you take back your world. Are you ready to fight for your freedom? The response came not from government officials, who had long since been replaced by imperial administrators, but from underground resistance cells that had maintained a flickering flame of rebellion for centuries. We've been waiting for this day since our grandparents were children, came the reply. Tell us what you need us to do. The liberation of Arcania became the template for dozens of similar operations. Human forces would disable orbital defenses and destroy Imperial garrisons, while local resistance fighters seized control of their own cities and governments. Within weeks, the Zenthari found themselves fighting rebellions on multiple fronts. Linda Shaw had become something of a legend among resistance movements throughout the galaxy. Her techniques for organizing civilian fighters and conducting guerrilla warfare had been adapted by dozens of species, each adding their own innovations to the basic human model of never surrender, always adapt. The key, she explained to a gathering of rebel leaders from 7 different worlds, is making the occupiers afraid to leave their bases. Every patrol that doesn't come back, every outpost that explodes, every supply convoy that disappears makes them weaker and more afraid. The Zenthari military, trained for conquering primitive civilizations, found themselves completely unprepared for the kind of warfare humans had taught their allies. Imperial forces that had maintained order for centuries were suddenly facing coordinated rebellions using tactics and weapons they had never encountered. Engineer Carlos Rodriguez worked with liberated worlds to establish their own defense industries. The hybrid human-alien technology that had emerged from Earth's resistance was being mass-produced on a dozen planets, creating a network of independent worlds that could defend themselves without relying on either human or imperial protection. Every world that frees itself makes the next liberation easier, he explained to President Rodriguez during a conference call from the Vegan shipyards. We're not building an empire to replace the Zenthari. We're building a galaxy where every species can choose its own future. The economic effects of the Galactic Rebellion were devastating to the Zenthari Empire. Trade routes that had operated for millennia were suddenly patrolled by human ships that treated Imperial vessels as pirates. Mining colonies that had supplied the Empire for centuries were declaring independence and cutting off resource flows to the galactic core. Dr. Chris Anderson's Chaos Bomb virus had evolved into something even more powerful. A galaxy-wide communication network that allowed resistance cells to coordinate their activities across vast distances. The same quantum technology the Zenthari had used to control their empire was now being used to tear it apart. They built their entire civilization around the assumption that they would always be in control, Anderson observed as he watched Imperial communication nodes fail across half the galaxy. They never considered what would happen if someone else gained access to their systems. The tipping point came when the Altarian Confederation, one of the Empire's oldest subject territories, formally declared independence and requested membership in the expanding Alliance of Free Worlds. The Altarians commanded one of the largest fleets in the galaxy, and their defection convinced dozens of other species to openly rebel. Supreme Commander Vectar found himself facing a choice that no Zenthari leader had confronted in 3,000 years: negotiate with equals or watch his empire collapse into civil war. The meeting took place on neutral ground, aboard a space station in the Tau Ceti system. Vectar arrived with the formal regalia of imperial authority, expecting to dictate terms to rebellious subjects. Instead, he found himself sitting across from President Rodriguez as an equal, negotiating the end of an empire. The empire offers a general amnesty, Vectar began. All rebellious worlds will be forgiven their crimes if they return to imperial authority. Rodriguez almost smiled. Commander, I think you misunderstand the situation. We're not asking for forgiveness. We're offering you a chance to surrender with honor. The Empire does not surrender, Vectar replied coldly. Then the Empire will fall, Rodriguez said simply. Half your territory is already in rebellion. Your military is stretched too thin to maintain control. Your economy is collapsing as liberated worlds cut off trade with the core systems. You can negotiate now while you still have something left to negotiate with, or you can fight until there's nothing left of your civilization but ruins. The negotiations took 3 months, but the outcome was inevitable. The Zenthari Empire, which had ruled the galaxy for 3 millennia, formally dissolved itself in exchange for guaranteed protection for core Zenthari worlds and the right of their species to exist as equals rather than rulers. Captain Kelly Brooks stood on the observation deck of humanity's newest starship, watching the stars and thinking about how much had changed. 2 years ago, she had been a test pilot flying experimental aircraft in Earth's atmosphere. Now she commanded a squadron of interstellar fighters patrolling trade routes that spanned half the galaxy. "Hard to believe we've come this far," said Lieutenant Cooper, joining her at the viewport. "The hardest part," Kelly replied, "is figuring out what comes next. We've torn down the Empire, but now we have to help build something better to replace it." The Galactic Federation that emerged from the ashes of the Zenthari Empire was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of one dominant species ruling over others, it was a voluntary association of equals, each contributing their unique strengths to the common good. Earth became the Federation's capital not because humans demanded it, but because other species recognized that humanity's refusal to surrender had made freedom possible for everyone. The planet that had once faced extinction as a protected species now served as the beacon of liberty for 3,000 worlds. President Rodriguez, now serving his second term as Federation president, often reflected on the message that had started it all. The Zenthari had sent rules to control Earth, expecting quick submission from a primitive species. Instead, they had encountered something they never understood: the uniquely human belief that freedom was worth any sacrifice, that dignity could not be negotiated away, and that sometimes the best response to an ultimatum was to set the entire galaxy on fire rather than kneel. The Empire had fallen, but the flame of human defiance had spread to every corner of the galaxy. In the end, the greatest weapon humanity had possessed was not their technology or their tactics, but their absolute refusal to accept that some things were impossible. The Zenthari had learned too late that when you threaten everything humans, "Hold dear, you don't get submission, you get war. And when humans go to war, they don't fight just to survive, they fight to